like a song and brighten my day. Who'd have believed that you were part of a dream? Now it all seems like years away. You know I can't smile without you. I can't smile without you. I can't laugh, I can't sing. I'm finding it hard to do anything, and I feel sad when you're sad. I feel glad when you're glad. If you only knew what I'm going through, I just can't smile without you.
What's happening, people? Welcome back. Here's your opposition preview. Bournemouth versus Tottenham at the Vitality Stadium in this game. A lot of Premier League fixtures at the moment. Busy time for both clubs. And fair to say, I think both clubs would have hoped they'd been in a better position before a ball was kicked this season. But that is the way it goes. And it's a tightly congested league to look at the positives. But joining me as a Bournemouth fan for the opposition preview is Craig. Craig, thank you very much for joining me. It's always good to talk to you and collaborate with you. Talk to people a little bit about what you do and also the podcast and channel across social media.
No, thank you so much for having me on, Harry. It's always a pleasure to come on your show. And yeah, I'll tell you what, great montage as well. Love that. Absolutely love that. But just to give you a little bit of an overview, I'm the main host of Up the Cherries. What we do is we do a range of shows. We do the Dean Court Social, which is very much like an opposition preview. It has been changed a little bit from last season. But yeah, Harry was very kind to contribute to that as well. So thank you for doing that for us. But also, we've also got loads of other shows on there, special guest interviews as well. Spurs fans, you might be interested to know that Simon Day from the Fast Show is a Spurs fan. So yeah, it's worth watching that. Unfortunately, I did have to cut out some of the parts of it due to the BBC getting on my back, but um, honestly, do go and have a little look. And yeah, I'm sure that you'll find loads of interviews like with Richie Neville from Five and Ocean Colour Scene, Happy Mondays, Blue Tones, Hard Fi. You'll find all those interviews on there as well. So yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, Harry.
No, pleasure's mine. Thank you very much. You do some great stuff as well. So thank you very much for sharing some of that there. People go check Craig out and all the cherries across social media. And thank you again for joining me. It should be a good one. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening via audio podcast platform, drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Craig, before we kind of get onto your season so far, Spurs season so far, and eventually the game, talk to people that don't know. What does Bournemouth mean to you?
Well, I grew up, believe it or not, it's a funny story. I grew up in a place called Reading, not too far from London. And, it's a bit of a funny story because the two clubs don't really like each other. Grew up watching Reading, but then moved down back in 2007 to be with my now wife. And of course, Bournemouth wasn't on its backside at that time. The club was in the process of being relegated from League One into League Two. The club was absolutely cash strapped. There was bailiffs taking stock out the club store, and I thought I'm going to go and watch my local team. So I started watching my local team. The football wasn't great. Put nicely, we was under Kevin Bond at the time, and then brought in Jimmy Quinn, so the football got worse. And then something happened, and of course we got beat by Blythe Spartans. Eddie Howe come in, somebody who was at that point, to be honest, Harry, you might, everybody knows the name Eddie Howe now, but Eddie Howe was a player for this football club. He was a player that, played with Harry Redknapp, of course, at Portsmouth. And he had a string of injuries. And he was seen at that point as a bit of a last gasp attempt to stop the club dropping into out the Football League effectively. Um, which, to be honest, if the club drops out of the Football League, the club probably wouldn't exist. And we all know what happened next. Eddie Howe just took us on this crazy journey that none of us could ever imagine. Took us to the Premier League. You even went to Burnley and then come back, um, and hence the reason why we find ourselves here today. So it was probably at the start what I thought was going to be the shortest fleeting visit of any fan to any football club, and it's actually turned into, what I would say amazing love affair, with a football club that nobody would ever imagine, even compared at that point to the likes of Wigan, Derby, and Reading. Of course, we'll mention Reading because, of course, that's where I was from. you know, we were small fish. We were thought of as, a tiny little club. And we went on this amazing journey. And hence the reason we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the journey. That's what football's all about.
It is. Thank you, firstly, for sharing that story. It's a really interesting one there about Reading connection and things like that. So, really appreciate again your honesty with that, and reminding people as well just where Bournemouth were. So when people turn around and go, Eddie Howe's not a good manager, there's your example of that. And in my eyes, I don't know how you feel, Craig, but I
He's
think
a
that's a better
legend.
manager. Exactly. In your eyes, is literally a great, isn't he? He saved Bournemouth, but I think that's a better manager. Do what he done with Bournemouth. Then not being funny. I know they're big names. Like even you get like Mourinho's and Conte's, they're good managers. We know that they're great managers. They're huge names, but they get players bought for them. However much money they want is usually spent for them, and they do the job. They win the trophies. It's great, and they deserve credit and recognition for that. But someone like Eddie Howe, you get managers like that. I'd argue not as big, but Thomas Frank as well with Brentford, how he transformed them, and very limited budget, negative net spend most of the time. I think that's a better manager. What do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There is fans of this football club who probably do have short memories, and they turn around and say that Andoni Iraola is, the best manager that we've ever had. Andoni Iraola is in a different era to Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe had to work with, firstly, players coming in on loans, contacting Steve Fletcher, a man who is an absolute legend, still at the football club, in a club ambassador capacity. He is one of the nicest gentlemen that you would ever like to meet. Honestly, and even to give you a bit of a story, one of my close friends, a gentleman called Al Gard, who's no longer with us, um, you know, back in 2002, had, you know, cancer, unfortunately, which he passed away from, and spoke to Steve Fletcher, and Steve Fletcher organised everything. Al was able to go in, meet the players, go around the stadium, and that is the mentality of the man. But sorry to divert there.
Sorry.
Um, it is an amazing story. Some of our fans are a little bit fickle. Some of our fans, say Andoni Iraola, the best manager we've ever had. No, I'm sorry. Eddie Howe, we wouldn't have Andoni Iraola if it wasn't for Eddie Howe. We wouldn't have even had Gary O'Neill if it wasn't for Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe is the man that, a lot of this story has to be attributed to. Don't get me wrong, chairman along the way as well, in particular, Maxim Deming, Jeff Mostyn, and Eddie Mitchell. Those three were big, big, big players. And by all means, we've had two of the three actually on our channel as well. Unfortunately, Eddie Mitchell no longer with us as well. But we've had those two of the three on, and the story is just absolutely amazing. It's brilliant, and honestly, Eddie Howe is probably Eddie Howe should really be the England manager.
I think so. Deep down, I agree with you. Firstly, sorry to hear about your friend and also Eddie Mitchell, and thank you for A, sharing that, and B, for again being so honest and transparent. It's interesting to hear as well what goes on, isn't it, behind the scenes, the goods and the bads that we just don't know about. But good chat there with Eddie Howe. If we move on to your season so far, what have you made of it? Because those that maybe haven't watched your games, or
Yeah.
even some that would, will look at it and go, boom, underwhelming. What's happened to Bournemouth? Look at this massive drop off of over like 10, 12 points from
Mhm.
last season. So talk to people how you view it. Is it really as bad as maybe it looks on paper, or like the media are painting it to be?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. And to be honest, we could probably compare it to Spurs and what you probably experienced right at the very start with Thomas Frank. Um, we got out the blocks very, very fast. We had the defeat at Liverpool. A very again, it was quite a strange atmosphere up there, to be honest. Of course, what sadly happened with Diego Jota. Um, Liverpool, really, really, really put in a great performance for him that you know, I'm sure that he would be proud of. I'm sure all their fans were proud of as well. Um, but after that point, we went on a great run. We went on a fantastic run. Of course, we did beat yourself at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I still call it White Hart Lane, to be honest. But
So do
yeah,
I.
yeah, but yeah, we in that run we beat yourselves. We had some really good performances. Most notably, I would like to point out it might not stand out as one, but the Fulham win. We was 1-0 down in that game. We turned that right around. Was really dominant. We never gave up. We showed that fight, that mentality. Um, the Nottingham Forest game, we was all over them. Should have been a bit more. Probably shouldn't have been the five. Would be well. It wasn't the 5-0, but it was never going to get to that level. But at the same time, I think that performance again in Sean Dyche's first game for Nottingham Forest was excellent. And then it kind of fell off a cliff. And when it happened was when we went to the Etihad. We played Manchester City. We only had one defeat on the board, which was up against Liverpool. Went up to the Etihad. We put in a really good performance. Now, do keep in mind during this game, Tyler Adams got quite a nasty injury, and therefore I think our season just went from there. The next game out was up at Villa Park, Aston Villa. Of course, tough game, tough place to go. Very good team. We was beaten 4-0 up there. We didn't really turn up. And since then, we've never really got to that level. We've shown glimpses, though, in the past couple of weeks, which will probably not please Spurs fans. In particular, the two worst performances for me, apart from the Villa game, was the defeat against Everton at home. Everton were not very good. I'm going to be honest. I don't think they're a particularly good side, but they got the better of us. Jack Grealish, scoring what was a very good goal, but we should really, if we was playing like we was earlier on the season, we probably would have beat them by 4-1, 5-1. They weren't particularly great. And then Brentford, where I don't even think we got out the car park for the first 45 minutes. It was that poor. It was diabolical. But in the past couple of weeks, we got the draw against Chelsea, and that was a good performance, a very, very good. And we seemed to, really we seem to have that fight back. We, seem to have that drive, and I thought, okay, everything's coming together. And then, of course, and I'm sorry to mention their names on your podcast, but against Arsenal, we got a gift from them. Gabriel passed straight
Mm.
into the line of sight of Evan Nilsson. He put that in. I think even I would have scored that at 40 years of age, Harry. So yeah, it was that much of a clanger. Declan Rice, of course, turned on the style.
Mm.
He did make amends for his mistake. Gabriel got the equaliser. Declan Rice took it to 3-1. And then I want to bring up one player who you're going to have to really watch out for, which is Ellie Junior Krupi, and probably scored the best goal of the weekend. It
What's the
was
goal?
honest, mate. I I'm not joking now. by what I'm going to say. A lot of Arsenal fans were like, "Well, you're crazy," but he is the next Thierry Henry. He is the next Mbappe. He is that good. He is that. He glides past players. He is. He's going to the very, very, very top of football, and we've just got to enjoy him whilst he's here, because
Mm.
a lot of fans will turn around and say, "Well, we're selling our best players." I don't think you can hold a player like that back. He is. He's going right to the very top, and there's no way we can keep hold of him for that much longer.
Mm. No, I definitely. Again, appreciate your honesty, and it's we realise that as Spurs as well, and sometimes you maybe are just a stepping stone. Sometimes, but it really helps the player's career. But sometimes I think you got to realise your
Yeah,
place, and fans won't like that. Spurs fans, Bournemouth fans, I think it's
yeah,
exactly the same. But I wonder if you don't mind briefly talk about the January transfer window, because a lot of the conversation, as you will know, is
yeah.
around Bournemouth. So the first thing I want to start with, of course, is
I know who you're
Semenya
going to bring
again.
up. Yep.
Yeah, sorry to. I mean, I'm sure you've gone round the houses with this kind of discussion. I'm sure plenty of times, but it's something that keeps coming up, doesn't it? In terms of that links
Mhm.
to Manchester City. So how do you feel about the whole Semenya situation?
Um, in all honesty, I think he has been a great servant for this football club. We signed him from Bristol City. When we signed him, I wasn't overexcited. I was a little bit, actually, to be honest. There was other players out there that I thought, well, actually, I'd rather them, because I knew of Semenyo from Bristol City. I knew he blew hot and cold for them. He's not done that for us. He's been really consistent. Iriola's got the very best out of him, and he's taken on his career a next step. Um, it's an interesting one, that article there from BBC Sport, because Semenyo's got a clause in his contract. Now that clause is 65 million, of which 12.5 million of that will have to go to Bristol City for their sell-on fee. However, that clause, as far as I know, and I'm not going to, this is me talking to other fans and, going through the grapevine and going through sources which I think are quite accurate, but, I don't want to be held to this. I understand that if it gets past the 10th of January,
Mm.
then that clause does not exist. So that figure will go up. So maybe we are playing quite a clever game by playing the long game, trying to hold out, because Semenyo's figure will probably go up. Now, it's understood Semenyo's people have spoken to Manchester City, wants to go there. Um, I'm a bit disappointed about his destination. I think he would be better suited at a club such as Spurs, in all honesty. I think, he'd be better suited going to Spurs, or, dare I even say it, Arsenal or someone like that. Because Manchester City, there seems to be that case of where they have got the ability to buy, and I don't know how they do it with 115 charges against them, to be honest, Harry. Um, they will go out, they will replace him, and then he'll end up finding his way to probably Everton, because that's where a lot of players seem to end up going, from Manchester City to Everton on loan. Now, hey, he might want to go to Everton, but at the same time, I would say be careful what you wish for. Again,
Yeah.
on the Semenyo front, and I know that we're probably going to, you probably want my thoughts on Thomas Frank and the situation he finds himself in, which I think, our season kind of mirrors yours a little bit. At the start of the season, okay, yeah, we did beat you early on, but you was in good form. I watched your game against PSG. I thought this could well be Spurs' year to really kick on, make a title challenge. It's not happened. Um, is that down to injury? Is that down to naivety? I think it's probably a mixture of both.
Mm.
But yeah, honestly, I thought this was the season for you to kick on. But yeah, with regards to Semenyo, I wish him well. I wish him well, but the grass isn't always greener. So yeah, maybe if I could say have one word in his ear, I would say think about what you want to do. Do you want to earn lots of money,
Mm.
or do you want to play lots of games of football? Because football is a short career. Um, and he's part of something here. He's part of history here. He could be part of something even bigger.
Yeah, absolutely could be. No, thank you. I just wanted to of course, get your thoughts on that. It looks like he's already said no to Tottenham that we heard a few weeks ago anyway. So, that's out the window. Not surprised the state the club is in at the moment. But on the window as a whole, what do Bournemouth need? Again, I'm sure so much
Mm,
of it, if not all of it, depends on what happens with Semenya. You've got a quote there that I did bring up for people who are listening on podcast platforms and can't see it, of Iriola saying, I think it could be his last game when asked about Semenya. So it looks like he's going. That's the feeling. So let's pretend you do sell him. And again, as
yeah.
you said there, it depends on when it is and how much you get for him. All unknown at this point, just rumours. But yeah, what would you want Bournemouth to do in the transfer window? Is it spending all that money they could get for him, or money generally on one player? Do you need a few in different positions?
There's a little bit of pre-planning that's gone into this as well, and this is what is really good about us. And I've got to be honest, both Brighton and Brentford also do it as well. Both clubs that I would say are in our category. We're not going to get above our station. We're not going to, and I think some fans do. When they say about players shouldn't leave and we should be able to keep hold of players, I think they're starting to think that we're, a Spurs or a Chelsea or an Arsenal, dare I say it, who don't need to sell players. No, at the end of the day, there is always got to be that succession planning. There will be for the manager as well. And in this case, I think there is for Semenyo. Even Nweri is meant to be coming in. Now, it has been rumoured that it is on loan in the press. However, I did speak to Marty from Arsenal Fan TV, and he believes it is a permanent transfer. So um, that will be very, very good. It would be a sensible move. It's a move that I think, will suit Namweri. I think he'll be able to fit into that style of play. He's a similar-ish sort of player, but of course, it all depends on how we progress him. And if he can follow the path of Semenyo, he's of course down to the manager Andoni Iriola, who would be the biggest loss, in all honesty. Um, but the other places that I think we need somebody. I think centre back we will be looking at that position. James Hill has come in for Bafode Diakite. Diakite was responsible for that pretty poor performance, or was a major part of that poor performance at Brentford. He looks like he's not become a bad player overnight, to be honest, Harry. What he is lacking is confidence. And I think what Iriola is doing now is taking him out that far in line, getting him to work on his game. And then hopefully when he does get that opportunity, which, touch wood, we won't have any injuries, but it's inevitable that something will happen at some point, then he can take that opportunity with both hands, like James Hill is at the moment. James Hill is a great player. He's a player that I've really wanted to see more from, but haven't, because of the fact that there's so much competition. He was behind Zabania, he was behind Dean Howson last season. Bafode Diakite has come in, he's been behind him, and of course Marcos Senesi. He can play on the right hand side, but I'm hoping he cements his place. So it's not really essential, but it's a case I think it will be preferable. But I would like to see James Hill get that main nod. Other positions, I would probably say, in the centre of midfield, we're probably looking, at one player there. And the forward line, I think our forward line is absolutely fine. We've got three forwards that offer something very, very different. Evan Nilsson is a battler. He'll drop back. He's a little bit like the Solanke sort of player. So he'll drop back. He'll be very, very physical. He is a bit of a poacher. He is an out and out goal scorer, in my honest opinion. Enes Unal is a bit of a target man. You get the ball into him, he brings it down. He's got a good foot on him, but he's also got a very, very good head on him. But he's not particularly the fastest player on the pitch. He is definitely a faster Kiefer Moore, who, of course, is very, very well thought of in these parts for scoring that goal against Forest to get us up. And then, of course, Sally Junior Krupi, and I don't need to say any more about him because I don't want anybody to buy him. But yeah, I think he's going to the very top, and he is probably the all-round striker. But the only thing about Ellie Junior Krupi, he is the youngest as well. There's probably gonna be some naivety in there. Um, but yeah, I think really centre midfield, probably at the back as well. And of course, we've made a signing in Fraser Forster for the goalkeeping department.
Yeah, of course. Ex Tottenham goalkeeper. So I think it's very sensible as well. Move. It'll be funny to bring him in, someone of his experience, and as they even have as a backup there. But just add something in there if you don't mind. 'Cause you mentioned at the start about losing Iriola. As you will know, managers are chopping and changing in this new
Yeah.
year already in 2026. Yes, Chelsea have a new manager, but United still looking for one. Thomas Frank not being funny will probably be under an element of pressure, especially if the result
Mhm.
doesn't go his way in this game. We've got Villa in the cup as well with the FA Cup. A lot of fans, I think, will think if we go out the FA Cup and we lose again in the Premier League, we probably end up 15th or 16th. I personally think that could be the end for him. So do you worry about Iriola potentially leaving Bournemouth or being taken off by another club? Because, of course, like United will be looking for a manager. I don't think necessarily it will be Iriola, but you always worried, aren't you, about your own manager when you see clubs like United, Chelsea, even though they've fixed that, looking for a new manager.
We're in a little bit of a catch-22 because the longer this run goes on, the less likely Areola is to leave. And to be fair, he is a very, very, very good manager. However, we need to get out of this run. And as soon as he starts winning games, and if he does what he did at the start of the season again, a lot of people will be linking to him to every job under the sun. Earlier on in the season, he was even being linked to the Real Madrid job. It was a little bit bonkers. Um, but it's all speculation, it's all rumors, it's all press, it's all stuff on Twitter, it's all, garbage until it actually happens. Um, I don't think Iriola, though, will leave this club mid season. And I'll tell you why. He is a man that respects a contract. Now, he hasn't signed a new contract, which is a concern. We want him to sign the extension. It's in front of him. He's not signed it as yet. Um, however, he will fulfill a contract and then move on. Um, so I cannot see him going to Manchester United right now. He's a little bit like, and he actually worked under him for a period of time as well. Marcelo Bielsa. Marcelo Bielsa would never join a club mid-season. Of course, when we bought, Gary O'Neill got the full-time job here, we was in for Marcelo Bielsa. I spoke to Alejo Rivera, who effectively is like the Clive Tilsey of Argentinian football. And he turned around to me at that point and he said, yes, Marcelo Bielsa is being discussed. He is talking to Bournemouth. Um, Iriola is of the same mindset that he will not join a club mid-season. He won't leave a club mid-season unless he's sacked. Um, I don't think he's going to go anywhere until the end of the year. But what happens after that time, if, say, for example, Manchester United get a manager in on a temporary basis to the end of the season, or Spurs do dispose of Thomas Frank's services and then, get in a temporary manager till the end of the year, then, I think Iriola will be in that position where he'll have options and clubs will know what he's like and clubs will be able to tell, right, okay, we just need somebody in just to steady the ship and then, we can get our man. I would love him to stay for as long as he can, even though we are in this bad run of form, but he's not an Eddie Howe. He's not, emotionally attached to this football club. He is somebody who's been employed by this football club. He's somebody who's been bought in by this football club. If you asked Eddie Howe if he'd love to come back to Bournemouth, if he was axed by Newcastle, he'd probably jump at the chance. But it's because he loves this football club. Even though he is an Everton fan, believe it or not, as a youngster, somebody has to be, I guess. But yeah, Iriola, has no need to be loyal to this football club, and that's what I think some of our fan base needs to realise as well.
Interesting. Craig, thank you. Covered some good points there. Of course, we'll have to see what does develop. Man United maybe one to watch. Rumours that Gunnar
Mm.
Solskjaer is extremely interested in taking over on an interim basis to the end of the year, and that would be perfect to what you're saying to bring
Yeah,
in Iriola. So there you go. I have to see what happens there. But Craig, moving on as we head closer to talking about the game, what have you made of Spurs this season? And in particular,
Mhm.
should Thomas Frank, that man on the screen, be given more time? Because he's under pressure. A lot of boos, in particular, aimed at
Yeah.
him. There's a few boos towards the team, but when he walks over, it gets 10 times louder. No exaggeration. I think he's starting to feel the pressure just a little bit.
Do you know what? If you was to ask 10 Bournemouth fans, not me, what they'd like to happen is they would like to, of course, beat Spurs. Of course, every one of our fan base would love to get a win on Wednesday night. We need one. But I'm sure up there alongside that would be to get Thomas Frank the sack. He's not a popular person with our fan base, and it mainly goes back to his time at Brentford during the playoff semi-final, where he started tapping his watch, started really getting involved, with the referee. Hey, I see it as a little bit of banter. It's one of those. He's a very, very good manager. He's done a fantastic job with Brentford, but if you imagine turning round Brentford or turning round Bournemouth or turning round Brighton, you know, if you had a manager that come in to one of our clubs and they were, in their first role, or second role, let's say, they've done quite well at a championship or a League One club. Um, if they come into our club, we would give them time. We haven't got the expectations of Spurs. If you asked Brentford fans, about Keith Andrews, who of course come in, has actually done a really good job. What would you like from this season? They probably go, well, we'll take 17th because a manager that got us here and has done a fantastic job has left. We've lost a number of players. They probably take that, and that expectation and that pressure wouldn't be on Keith Andrews. The pressure when Thomas Frank went into Tottenham Hotspur was massive. You just won a European trophy under Ange Postecoglou. Should he have got Ange have got a little bit more time? Debatable. I really like Ange as a person, but sometimes his football style isn't great. Nice people don't always make nice, great football managers. That's the be all and end all of it, really. But Thomas Frank is a man that's come in after that success. He's come into a Spurs side which have got injuries, have got players that probably some of them are not really up to the standard where you want them to be, not really got the mentality or the fight what you need. um it's a it's a bigger ship to turn around than a Bournemouth or a Brentford, or you name many teams in the Premier League. Palace, you could even say the same about them. If Glasner left, would they take 17th if they lost, a number of their players? They probably would do. Um, so Thomas Frank, turning round Spurs, he's got to be given time. And as much as some of the Bournemouth fans will be wanting us to get one over on both Spurs and also getting Thomas Frank the sack, um, I don't mind him. I don't mind him as a person. I think he talks a good game. Um, you know, hey, He was doing what he was right for Brentford at the time. Hey, managers would do what they feel is right for Bournemouth. So yeah, I think he needs a little bit more time. I wish him well. Is he going to get more time?
Mm.
Again, I think the pressure and the expectancy of the job probably means that he is probably skating on thin ice. Whereas what he's doing at Spurs might be completely acceptable, for Keith Andrews.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. The expectation is different. I just not trigger happy as a supporter. I just want manager to be given time to try and turn something around. And I like the Frank's being honest, saying they're not in a good place. It's going to take time. I'd rather that than be lied to. And I think the owners do lie. They try and pretend everything's perfect.
If you want a good example of a team pulling the trigger and going backwards, look at West Ham. David Moyes delivered
Yep.
them a trophy, the first time in my lifetime. Quite a bit older than you, Harry. So yeah, West Ham starved of success for so many years, and then they've sacked David Moyes. They've gone to Graham Potter. It's slid backwards. Nuno's come in. He's got players that he doesn't really want there. It seems to be a talented squad, but a mishmash of individuals that can't play together. And West Ham are in, well, they're in big, big trouble. And I would not be surprised to see them relegated because he has got a race against time to sort it out there. You don't want the same situation. You've got to give this man a little bit of time. He's done a great job at Brentford. It's just going to take a bit longer at Spurs, and that expectation kind of has to be put on the back burner. Hey, you know, give him time now. In 2 years' time, you could be celebrating winning the league. You could be celebrating, winning a European trophy again. Um, that's what you need to look at.
Mm, totally agree with you. Thank you very much for that. What one player from Spurs, Craig, would you take at Bournemouth? If I said to you, you had to choose one, but you can't choose that any more or any less. What one would you choose?
Oh, that's a very, 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 very good question. Um, of course, the obvious one I could go for is bringing Dom back. Um, Dom. I was gutted to see him go in the first place, but at the same time, I think it was the right time for his career to make that move. He is probably at his peak now, um, but he has been injury prone. I tell you one player that I would quite like, and I tell you what, when he was actually playing for Leeds, I thought he was a good player. He's Archie Gray. I like him. He's a young player. He's got bags of potential. I think he's somebody who you could probably model your team around in the future. He's already done all right. I guess with those sort of players, you have to kind of wrap them up in a little bit of cotton wool as well, but to make sure that they progress at the right rate. But um, yeah, Archie Gray is a player that I would say probably not for now, but yeah, wouldn't mind seeing him in Bournemouth shirt for the future.
I think you got someone similar to that in like Alex Scott. If I'm honest with you, I see that in terms of profile of player.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
think
see.
they'd work very well together. I think they would work
Probably.
very well together. Um,
Yeah.
I think with regards to Tyler Adams, he's a massive loss. And
Yeah.
Archie Gray, you could say that, he probably does that sort of style as well, and working alongside Scott, he would be very, very, very good. And of course,
Mm.
he's got age on his side, which means he's only going to get better. He's only going to get better. He is going to be a player who I think will be an England regular.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Spot on, Craig. Thank you. Before I get your thoughts and score prediction, do you have a favourite memory between Spurs and Bournemouth? I assume you choose, of course, a good memory rather than a bad memory.
Yeah, of course I am. Of course, we were battling down at the lower end of the Premier League under Gary O'Neill, um, and I can't not say that 3-2 win. I can't not
Huge.
say that. It was a
Mm.
massive, massive game. But, we've had some really good games, over the years. Of course, Dean Howson, of course, scored last season. Fantastic header. That was really to announce himself on the stage. So, yeah, we've had some really, really good games against each other. But, yeah, I'm going to go for the 3-2.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you very much. And in particular, then about this game, how do you feel? I get the impression, of course, yeah, for my side, Tottenham as well, 3 points it would be massive. But I think for Bournemouth as well, feels like a must-win game. Semenya's last game, go out on a high and kind of feel in a better place.
Who knows if it's Semenyo's last game?
If it
I
is,
think
yeah.
I think we are playing a little bit of a game to try and get more money out of Manchester City. I don't know how how that's all going to pan out. I'm not a financial expert. I'm not, a CEO of any kind. I think that there's there's some good work going on in the background from our perspective. Probably not from Manchester City's, although they've got bags of money anyway. They only need another 115 charges. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. I think Semenyo will score that goal just in case. And I think Krupi's on a run. I think we will probably start with Emma Nielsen, Krupi coming off the bench. There's question marks whether or not Krupi should start, but Krupi is a impact player, and I think maybe we're nurturing him like I say with Archie Gray,
Yeah.
like Spurs will be with Archie Gray, nurturing him to become better and better and better and better. So yeah, I think with young players you've got to kind of manage them in the right way. Don't give them too much game time. No, make them realise what being dropped feels like. I know that sounds a stupid thing, but make them realise what being dropped feels like. How that when they do get dropped, they're still part of the squad. They work on their game. They go back in. They fight for their place, and they get that place back. And then they try and cement that and make that theirs. Um, I think that's what Iriola will be drumming in and driving into Krupi. Um, the only thing is we probably won't see the benefits of the long-term effects. We'll probably see the benefits of the money, but we won't see the benefits of the long-term effect because somebody's gonna take him.
That's true. No, that's very, very true. Again, honesty. Thank you, Craig. A bit of Bournemouth team news then, which I'm sure you'd know about.
Yeah.
Clive had to undergo knee surgery after an injury in the previous game against Arsenal. So, of course, he'll be out. But,
Mm.
Craig, who should Tottenham, as myself as a Spurs fan, who should we be worried about that could cause Tottenham the most problems from you guys in this game? Of course, it won't be Clive who's out.
David Brooks was very, very good. I was quite confused why he come off for Amin Adli against Arsenal. It didn't make
Mm.
really that
No,
much
it
sense.
didn't. No, I watched it. It didn't matter. Good seeing him back on the pitch, firstly. But no, I think it was strange to see him come off.
Yeah, I think David Brooks is very back to his best after everything he's been through. Of
It's
course,
good to see.
oh gosh, yeah. The Hodgkin lymphoma. In fact, I looked into it in quite some detail, and um, I did question back, and I'll admit this, I did question whether or not he was ever going to get back to this level.
Yeah, so did
But
I.
it's a credit to him that he has done, and hopefully, fingers crossed. He can keep kicking on and keep making, a real impact for this football club because he's a man that is so likable. David Brooks, I think he's one to watch out for. But do keep an eye on. Of course, I've mentioned Creepy too much now, so I'm going to go a little bit different. Do keep an eye out for Marcus Tavernier as well. Marcus Tavernier is a player that sometimes you'll think he's having a bad game, and then he turns it on and he can change a game. Um, you know, he he's got a fantastic strike on him. He can pick something out of a hat when we're up against it. So yeah, I'm one of those two. Sorry, I've cheated there a little bit, Harry.
All
But
right.
yeah, this man's a massive loss. A funny story actually about Justin Kluivert. I went to Amsterdam back last March, and of course I can't read Dutch. So I've gone to the train station, gone out of the hotel, gone to the train station, going to go do the tour of the Ajax Stadium, and the train's pulled up, And this lady's come out, and then of course this gentleman, and the gentleman said, "Oh yeah, you have to get on this train." He said, "Yeah, but my nephew, he plays for a small Premier League club." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Who's your nephew?" He was like, "Oh, have you ever heard of a team called Bournemouth?" I was just like, I had my Bournemouth shirt on and the jumper because it was bloody freezing, and I just pulled up the jumper, and he was like, "No." So yeah, Justin Cliver, massive loss. Lovely guy as well. So yeah, hopefully he can get back to full fitness sooner rather than later.
That's amazing. That's a
Eh,
super cool story.
do you know what? You couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it
No,
up.
what's the
Um,
chance?
I know, I know. He was like, yeah, he plays for a really small football club. I think he was a little bit worried that he defended me, and I thought, part of me went in through my head, and I thought, wow, this is going to be rubbish. This, of course, he's just saying this, but no, there was a picture of him, Justin, and of course Patrick there.
Wow, there you go. It just shows you. That's amazing. I love that. I
Yeah,
love little stories like that. Small world is like I
definitely,
like to
mate.
say.
Definitely.
Good stuff. Thank you. But Craig, I've got to ask you, what is your score prediction in this game, and who do you think is going to get the goals, if any?
So yeah, I'm going to go for the 2-0, and I'm going to go Semenyo,
Of
and of
course,
course
yes,
that
no.
man Krupi. Yeah.
Signature 2 0. No worries. Okay. Thank you very much. And just what would a win mean? We say, don't we, that you said it there, that win is important. How much better position does it put you in? We know it's a tightly congested table, means you're
Mm.
in a better position in the table, more points on the board. But is it momentum as well? 'Cause you said you played better in the last 2 weeks. I just feel like it would make a big difference.
It would make a massive difference. Um, I think, coming out of what looks like on paper a tough run of games with the results that we have. Yep, the defeat against Arsenal, but the draw against Chelsea. If we was to beat Spurs, it gives us some impetus going into the next game, going into that FA Cup match against Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe, it's always questionable sometimes how he's going to prioritize this cup. He was never really a cup man for us, but of course he's won one with Newcastle. So is he going to go for it, or is he going to focus on that league position for them? Um, it's going to it's going to give us a little bit of momentum, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we can get back to the winning ways. We need to sooner rather than later. We can't have this going on much longer.
No, definitely. And some end of season predictions, if you don't mind, to end on. So, firstly, my
Go on.
club, Tottenham. Where do you honestly think they'll finish in the Premier League? And will Thomas Frank be in the job come the end of the season?
I am going to go for, as it stands at the moment, ninth, and
Okay.
I would like to think he is given time. Yes.
Okay. Do you know what? That's not too bad. It's better than the position we're in now. So, anything's better than, well, I don't know what we are now. We're 14th, 15th,
Yeah.
concerning either way. We're near you guys, of course. So, both teams shouldn't be there really on paper. Some talented players, but in particular, I think talented
Mhm.
managers deep down who'll both be hoping to get their clubs up at least to the top half. Craig, thank you. And also, where do you think your club, Bournemouth, will finish?
We finished ninth last season. I think there's been going to be a little bit of a drop off this year. We have lost, a lot of players during the last
Yeah.
summer. Howson, Kirkez, Zabanier. Of course, Semenyo, if he does go, that's going to be a big loss. I'm going to go for 13th. Yeah, some fans will see that as, a real drop back, but I'll see it as a season where we just need to stabilize ourselves, and then push again. We
Mm.
will find players again. We've got such good scouting system. We will find another Kirkes. We will find another Howson. We'll find another Zabanier, and we will push forwards.
Okay, well, good to hear. I mean, that man on your screen, I've just brought out Evan Nilsson, seems to love a goal and an assist against Tottenham. Not the only one, of course, but
Yeah,
he seems to be doing well.
yeah. To be honest, he's come under some stick,
Mm.
mainly because he's not been prolific in front of goal. But
You do
in
waste a
all
lot of
honesty,
chances. If you don't mind me just interrupting, sorry, just to
yeah, of
say,
course.
when I watch you guys, I feel like you play well, but often just to get that second goal, get the first goal in the game, or just to be hit the woodwork a lot, come really close. And of course, as a team, when you're not clinical enough, your striker's going to face a criticism, isn't
Mhm.
he?
He is, yeah. And I think sometimes I think he's got a confidence issue as well. So we just need to stand by him. You know, if he does get dropped for Croupy, we shouldn't see it as Evan Nielsen's, going to be, sold by the club or anything like that. What some fans are going on about. It is a case of taking it back to the training ground, drawing board, get him back into a better position, get his confidence up, and then put him in the squad. But yeah, he does enjoy a goal against Spurs, so yeah, I wouldn't mind if he enjoys another one.
Hopefully not. Let me just say that. But I'll be honest. Lovely stuff. Great. Thank you. It's been a fantastic conversation, if I may say so, today. Always
Thank you
good
so much.
to talk to you. No, anytime. Where can people follow you again on social media? Remind people again about what you do and what the channel
Yeah,
does. So
of
anyone who's
course.
interested.
Yeah, of course. So the channel is called Up the Cherries in All Departments, or UTC IAD AFCB on YouTube. Yeah, just come over to our channel. We are also on Instagram. We're not so much heavy on X anymore. We have kind of diluted that platform. It's not the greatest of places, is it really, since Elon's taken over? But yeah, you can find us definitely on YouTube, and also we got on Spotify, Apple Music, podcasts, all these sort of places. So yeah, come give us a listen. I'm sure there's something you'll enjoy.
Absolutely will be. Craig, thank you, and wish Bournemouth, of course, as well. And I mean this, all the best for the rest of the season. Good club. They're always good to watch. Play football the right way. Spurs fans would love us to play the way they do right now. Let's tell you that. But thank you. Those listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Subscribing if you're new, liking if you like us in particular. Bit of content, opposition previews as well in general, that will continue for the rest of the season. Absolutely committed to that. And if you're listening by audio podcast platform, drop us a follow and a 5-star review. But thank you very much. And for now, a massive come on, you Spurs.
Came along just like a song.